Picture this: a boy born in a mud brick house near Tikrit, Iraq, in 1937, who'd grow up to become one of the most feared dictators of the 20th century, Sadam Hussain. Young Saddam didn't have it easy. His childhood was marred by hardship and struggle, experiences that would shape and harden him for the future. His stepfather, a harsh man, showed him little kindness, but it was through this adversity that Saddam found his resolve. In his teens, he found solace and a sense of purpose in politics, aligning himself with the then-emerging Ba'ath Party. His rise within the party was swift and decisive. His charisma, coupled with ruthless ambition, set the stage for his future reign. He was a man of humble beginnings, but his destiny was anything but ordinary. Thus, from the ordinary life of a village boy, a path was paved towards an extraordinary, yet infamous journey. Fast forward to 1979, and Saddam Hussein is now the president of Iraq. From humble beginnings in the dusty lanes of a small village, this man has now become a pivotal figure on the world stage. But the road to power was not without its obstacles. Saddam's ascension began with the resignation of President Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr. While the official story was one of health complications, whispers of a forced stepping down were rife. With the seat of power vacated, Saddam, who had been serving as vice president, seized the opportunity. Iraq's leadership was now in his hands. But gaining power was one thing, keeping it quite another. Saddam knew that he had to consolidate his position, and he did so with a chilling efficiency that would come to define his rule. The method was simple and brutal: eliminate anyone who could potentially challenge his authority. Within days of assuming office, Saddam called for an extraordinary assembly of the Ba'ath Party, Iraq's ruling political faction. In a spectacle of terror, he accused several members of treason, based on a supposed coup plot. One by one, they were led away, their fates sealed. By the time the purge was over, hundreds of potential rivals had been executed or imprisoned. The message was clear: opposition to Saddam was a death sentence. This fear kept his potential rivals in check and allowed Saddam to solidify his grip on power. His reign was marked by a total control of the state machinery, from the military to the media. He was not just the president, but the undisputed ruler of Iraq. Saddam's rise to power was marked by bloodshed and terror, but it also marked the beginning of an era of unprecedented stability in Iraq, albeit under a ruthless dictatorship. For the ordinary Iraqi, it was a time of fear, but also of relative peace. And so Saddam, the once ordinary villager, had become Iraq's iron-fisted ruler. His rule, marked by a blend of terror and stability, would shape the destiny of Iraq for decades to come. With Saddam at the helm, Iraq was thrust into a tumultuous era of wars and conflicts. First came the Iran-Iraq War, a grueling 8-year-long conflict that began in 1980. Saddam, seeking to take advantage of Iran's political instability, launched an invasion, setting the stage for one of the longest and bloodiest wars of the 20th century. The war was marked by brutal trench warfare, the use of chemical weapons, and a staggering loss of life. An estimated 1 million lives were lost, and both nations were left economically crippled. In the aftermath of the war, Iraq was burdened with a massive war debt. Saddam sought to alleviate this financial strain through the invasion of Kuwait in 1990. The rich oil reserves of Kuwait seemed like a quick fix to Saddam's economic woes, but his aggressive actions drew the ire of the international community. This led to the Gulf War, also known as Operation Desert Storm, a conflict that further ravaged the already war-torn nation. A coalition of 35 nations, led by the United States, responded to Iraq's invasion of Kuwait with a massive military assault. The war was brief, lasting only from January to February of 1991, but it left a lasting impact. Iraq was defeated, and devastating sanctions were imposed, leading to widespread poverty and hardship for the Iraqi people. Throughout these wars, Saddam's regime was marked by its ruthless tactics and disregard for human life. His quest for power came at an enormous cost to his people, who bore the brunt of the devastation. Their homes were destroyed, their families torn apart, and their futures uncertain. Saddam's quest for power had plunged his nation into an abyss of destruction. His decisions, driven by ambition and the desire for dominance, led to an era of wars that would forever scar the history of Iraq. However, no reign of terror lasts forever, and Saddam's fall was as dramatic as his rise. The turn of the millennium heralded a new chapter in the saga of Saddam Hussein, one marked by downfall and disgrace. In the early days of 2003, the world watched in bated breath as the US and its allies launched an invasion of Iraq. The motives were manifold, but one goal was clear: the end of Saddam's rule. Operation Iraqi Freedom, as it was named, was swift and relentless. The once untouchable dictator found himself on the run, his regime crumbling around him. For months, Saddam evaded capture, a shadow lurking in the ruins of his fallen empire. But as the year drew to a close, his time ran out. In December, he was found hiding in a small underground hole near his hometown of Tikrit. The man who had once commanded a nation was now a prisoner, his reign reduced to rubble. The trial that followed was a spectacle watched across the globe. Saddam, defiant to the end, faced charges of crimes against humanity. His defense was fiery, his demeanor unrepentant. Yet the evidence was overwhelming. The countless tales of terror, the mass graves, the chemical attacks, all painted a picture of a man who had caused untold suffering. In November of 2006, the verdict was announced. Sadam Hussain was to be hanged. The sentence was carried out on the final day of the year, in a grim farewell to a brutal dictator. The once feared leader met his end, not in a palace, but in a dingy, dimly lit room, the noose of justice tightening around his neck. In the end, Saddam's reign, which had begun with a bang, ended with a whimper. The echoes of his downfall still reverberate today, a stark reminder of the cost of unchecked power and the inevitable fall from grace. Saddam Hussein, once the mighty ruler of Iraq, now lives on as a symbol of tyranny and oppression. His reign, spanning over 2 decades, left an indelible mark on the people of Iraq and the world at large, a mark that continues to bleed long after his demise. The aftermath of Saddam's rule was a landscape of division and turmoil. Iraq, once a beacon of progress and prosperity in the Middle East, was left scarred and fractured. Ethnic and religious tensions, suppressed during Saddam's iron-fisted rule, erupted into violence and chaos. The once vibrant cities of Baghdad and Mosul became battlegrounds, symbols of a nation torn apart. Saddam's legacy also extends beyond the borders of Iraq. His invasion of Kuwait and the subsequent Gulf War reshaped the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. It led to a shift in alliances, the strengthening of Western influence, and the birth of a new age of warfare, one defined by precision strikes and televised conflict. Yet, the world also learned valuable lessons from Saddam's life and rule. His reign serves as a stark illustration of the dangers of unchecked power, of the ease with which a leader can manipulate nationalistic sentiments to justify atrocities. It underscores the importance of international vigilance and intervention in the face of gross human rights abuses. Saddam's life also teaches us about the resilience of the human spirit. Despite years of dictatorship, the people of Iraq have shown remarkable strength and determination. They have survived brutal wars, crippling sanctions, and a destructive occupation. Their ongoing struggle for peace and stability is a testament to their indomitable will. Saddam Hussein's life serves as a stark reminder of the perils of absolute power, a cautionary tale that echoes through history. His legacy, both dark and complex, continues to shape Iraq and the world. It is a legacy that we must remember, not to glorify, but to learn from, to ensure that the tragedies of the past are not repeated in the future.